Hi, my name is Mika David. I wanted to tell you a little bit more about my tailoring project inspired by Cristobal Balenciaga. Initially, we had to research about him, his style, his life, and the point that caught my eye the most was the immigration process from Spain to Paris. Spain had just started a civil war, and his clientele was getting smaller and smaller, and people were buying less luxury clothing in wartime. And so he decided it's time to move to the fashion capital of the world at the time, Paris. And that got me thinking a lot about immigration and how sometimes immigration would be a part of self-loyalty. You can't be the person you are anymore where you come from, so you move to a new place. But the things that make you you are still connected to that original place you come from. So it's staying loyal to yourself to leave, but it's also staying loyal to yourself to be connected to those roots. And so I was thinking about how to express that notion visually, graphically. So I got to this artwork by Frank Stella. I cannot pronounce the name, I won't even try. But it basically depicts a grid with a big organic shape working itself around and through and over the constricted grid. And I saw that as a visual expression of not fitting in anymore and having to leave the place you don't fit into, but still staying connected to it and not separating completely. And I took that artwork and started designing clothing that has familiarity of tailored construction, but in a way that is only reminiscent of that tailoring world. I wanted to be around 90% something new and 10% classical tailored shapes and materials. And so I started by creating the 3D shape out of vent pipes, because they had the tubular structure but also the flexibility that got me to build the 3D the way I wanted it. I then draped it with fabric, took that fabric, converted it to two-dimensional pattern pieces, and then constructed my first wall, measured it on the model, reconstructed and re-measured. And at the same time, I was looking for materials. And so I wanted to go for the classical tailored material, which is wool. I wanted to take the colors from the Frank Stella structure because they were so not traditionally tailored. And so I liked that contrast. I took samples from every store in Israel that carries wool in any color that isn't pastel, black, white, any bright, colorful color. And I ended up with a small selection that inevitably became the material to my work. I chose different weights and different textures to really emphasize the entire 3D environment that this wearable piece of art, that this wearable structure represents, and the entire connection between the sleeves that is completely hollow, so you can fit your hand through the orange sleeve and take it out through the blue one, is also completely hand stitched. And of course the linings had to be hand stitched as well in the sleeves and at the hem of the dress. This was meticulous hard work, especially creating the 3D structure. I took inspiration from the vent pipe I used initially to create the 3D shape, and so I recreated it but using textile materials. I used corset mesh to recreate my sleeves as an inner skeleton, and then I used boning pipes in a circular motion going around and around the sleeve, and then one long bone inside to really create that circular ongoing shape. The tunnels are connected to the corset mesh from the inside so that it's pressing outwards, and so that way the pressure from the bone wanting to leave the structure is not too dependent on the connection between the tunnels and the corset mesh itself. It is more putting pressure out on the corset mesh that is pretty strong and can contain that. And then I fit that structure inside the wool garment and completely lined it, so the 3D structure is not visible and cannot be accessed. It is completely covered by lining, and it's trapped between the two layers and hand stitched into place. As a final touch, I attempted to create shoes. That was pretty ambitious. Creating shoes is pretty complicated, and I did my best. They didn't end up fitting the model, but I did include a picture of her holding them in the materials I sent. They were also supposed to be a shoe that is only reminiscent of a shoe. So some weird blobby shape that allows you to put your foot in and walk, but is not very clearly a shoe when not being worn on a foot. And so I ended up including it as an extra and having the model wear pink heels. This project taught me a lot about tailoring. I don't usually work my way so much into the details of a garment. I had to rethink, every time I rethought the pattern, I had to rethink all the inside of the garment as well. So every piece of lining and every fabric piece that cleans up the edges and button, everything had to be well thought out and really strategically placed and put together so that this structure can hold itself up. This was really inspiring for me, and I think it really opened a door for me in the future to explore these types of techniques. Another small inspiration I drew from Balenciaga work was from the semi-fitted coat that I recreated. Inside, there's a waistband holding the waist of the front close to the body and the back leaving it with volume. And I wanted to use that element in my dress as well. And so there is an inside waist belt that sits close to the body in the back, and then on the front and side of the dress are kind of further away, and it's being held inside by that piece, inspired by the way the jacket is being held close to the body at the front but further away from the body at the back. That's it. I enjoyed this project very much. Thank you for letting me be a part of it.